Well, we make an experiment. And you are the witness of an experiment, a lecture with two. And you will have these experiments going on during all the days. So it's we try. We shall try. I would like to present you my speaking partner for the next hour. And this is Klaus-Peter Röh. Klaus-Peter Röh is born in the farthest northern part of Germany, very near to Denmark, and in a very flat area.
That's right.
And he grew up in a small farmer village where everybody knew everybody and all helped each other in the work. And so did the children. They just joined the farm work in the house and in the fields. When Klaus-Peter went to Flensburg to study, he awoke to the need of a good education. And he did a research. He wanted to find a good education for children. And he found the Waldorf education. And he was the co-founder of the first Waldorf school in Flensburg, which opened immediately with 6 classes. And he was following several classes on their way as their class teacher. So he has a rich educational experience. And thank you. So here we are.
I have the pleasure to introduce to you Stephanie Allon. She was born not in such a flat land. She was born in Switzerland, and a part of her childhood was in a village, similar village, but next to mountains. And some streams are in her life, strong streams. One of that stream is being always attracted from pedagogy. First being a class teacher, then being a curative teacher and learning all that. And then there's another stream which brought her more and more again and again to Israel. So she made a course there, later she gave courses there, and today she has now that pedagogic stream being responsible by coordinating and visiting kindergartens, even in Palestine on the other side of the border. And so she also met her husband there, and there they lived now many years. And I just can say I look forward now to the next hour because I don't know how this will be. She always brings in new ideas, always. And I look forward to hear that. She always says, yes, we reached a lot, but, and then she goes off. So let's see what will happen now. I'm glad to work together with her. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have to say that Klaus-Peter also came a bit southwards in the direction of Switzerland in order, together with Florian Oswald, to come and lead the pedagogical section and to bring a lot of life in the Waldorf movement. The title of the lecture we grew out of our common conversation. Some conversation from very far and some nearer. And it is the title, Relationship Opens the Way into the Future. And this title grew out of a saying of Rudolf Steiner, which I ask you please to remember this sentence, because it will be a riddle sentence for the whole conference for you as a homework. What could this mean? The sentence is, we only move forward when we think in a circle. Please remember.
Can you repeat? Can you repeat?
We only move forward when we think in a circle. Because it is celebrating 100 years of Waldorf education, and we are the openers of the conference with the lectures, so we decided to look at the Waldorf movement from 3 aspects. We go look a little bit back, we look in the future, or ask ourselves what the future is calling us, and then we will try to say what could we do just now and here. So try to imagine this an incredible number of children, of fathers, of mothers, of educators who were bringing into life the ideas, the educational ideas expressed by Rudolf Steiner. And it fills us with a lot of thankfulness that all this work was done during all these many, many, many years, day for day, week for week, with obstacles, with problems, but going on, and we arrived to such a wonderful situation that there are all over the world people involved in this very, very important educational work. Let's think how many dances were danced, how many songs were composed, how many toys were created, and all these joyful moments which were lived in all these frames and educational centers. Maybe we have also to say thanks to all the moments of desperation when things did not work, because then parents and educators could experience a moment of decision. Nevertheless, we go on and feeling their strengths. So thanks also to the obstacles. I would like to ask, is it the right time? Klaus-Peter to continue our presentation.
And how many dolls were made and given from hand to hand in the mornings of the kindergarten or in the parents' evenings. And now, one moment in our preparation talks, Stephanie said, can we look at some characteristic phases in that past time? And so we could say in the beginning, there was the school, 1919, 100 years birthday. That was just the beginning. A moment later.
Can I disturb you?
Yes.
Because, in fact, in 1919, there was not yet a kindergarten. Because Rudolf Steiner said he wanted it very much, but there was a lack of money. So the kindergarten was not opened in 1919, but only in 1920, 1926, it was Elisabeth von Grunelius who started the first kindergarten. And after her, wow, so many precious, important kindergarten teachers after her.
So there was a big lack of money, and that was really something. And so first there were institutions, schools, and then the kindergarten started in the first time somehow just along with institutions, with parents knowing Waldorf kindergarten. So the number first was small, but after that Second World War, 1946, not only in these countries, in other countries too, suddenly there began a new phase of foundation. So in that moment, it went suddenly strong, high up, the kindergartens, more on their own, and the schools went also on in that second phase. And just as an example, imagine somewhere in the north, Hanover, just the war there, the whole town in ruins. That was the playground for the children, ruins. For the sense world, very interesting to climb and to do all that. But then the kindergarten there got a house, and the house had no roof. There was no fixed roof somewhere. Nothing was there. The windows didn't close. The grass was growing through the floor in that house of that first kindergarten of Clara Hattermann. And then in winter time it was so cold that the windows had really ice flowers, that wonderful formings or frost crystals. And the wind came into that house. So if it rained, they had a lot of old umbrellas and put them over the play place of the children. So we could say that really was a Waldorf kindergarten with strong connection to the elements, you can say, everywhere. So now there was that phase that in 78 already 240 kindergartens, Waldorf kindergartens in the world, and now it made speed up. 10 years later already 600. But what was the reason that it really went so strong up? And that was, for example, that the whole surrounding now changed. You could not say anymore, just go out, take your little sister and play. That was in the cities, in the towns, and after a while also in the villages not anymore possible. So we see that Waldorf always gives an answer to what is the surrounding society and time spirit. So you couldn't just go play. In old times, the children got the word, I got it, still, go and play, if it's dark, you come home. And that was over. So more and more consciousness now about educating a child in that age. And even 10 years further on, and then I have a question to Stephanie, 10 years further on, the 80s, now I have to mention two books. Susan Howard wrote a book about that first time of kindergarten in the middle of the last century. And Nana Goebel just now brought out 3 wonderful books where she exactly describes those moments of time spirit in all countries of the world, not only Central Europe. And she brings the threads together, all those foundations. It's just now came 3 wonderful books. And now in that moment she writes that in that moment of the 80s now a new phase began, absolute new phase. The state came, first time, it still comes. The state came and said, so, and now we learn earlier, please. We could achieve much more if we just learn earlier. So there was a first attempt, And in that moment, the Waldorf kindergartens had a good fight together with others, with other kindergartens, to say, no, please leave the kindergarten free of school learning, of pressing wisdom into the heads. So that was one phase. The fight for childhood began. 80s, 90s, stronger and stronger. And we know where we are today. Some state lines want to press the learning down and want to select early. That's what they want. And we say, as a Waldorf movement, no. First is there the right of childhood, the dignity of a child learning by itself, by its own impulse. And then other things will come and shall come. And now I ask Stephanie, what would you say in the last 30 years, what developments came and now give new challenges for the kindergartens? What would you say?
Well, we all know that the world is strongly changing. It's so much in change, and these changes come quicker and quicker. And we don't know also how quick the changes will be in the next future. But these changes are certainly, you will say that they are mirrored in the children and also in the educational situation. For the children, it's much more. I spoke a little bit with kindergarten teachers, and it's interesting what they say. And you will have another list of phenomena for this time. All this automatization around the kindergarten brings the children in the situation that they have no more access to real work with the body. This is one thing. And the family are in a constant change also. The constellations of the family are no more what we somehow were used, we old people, long time ago. It's no more the same. And also a lot of fluctuation in the family constellation around the children. Kindergarten teachers also say that parents are so eager to do the best for the children. They would like to understand them, but sometimes they are overdoing. They just give them everything. And how to manage with this then, and to teach the children that not everything can be bought. On the other hand, fathers and mothers many times feeling very lonely with the educational situations and insecure how to meet them. Another thing is that they say the children are more individual and need more, everyone needs more attention. I'm sure you could add much more to my saying. And there is also this, that at least we have this in Israel, more and more grown-ups. The co-workers, the number of the co-workers is growing around the children, because also the day is mostly growing. The day the children are not at home. They are in the institution. So many people around the children, how do they work together? Are they able to work together and to be connecting? I guess you have also things to mention.
Yes. That movement now also to this time belongs that the state and some institutions of the state bring in more and more regulations. I don't think it's only in Europe or European countries, it's all over the world that influence of state wants to become stronger, and that could be one big theme of this conference. How do we build up inner strength by a new social step together to meet that outer pressure or that expectations which are there? For example, there are regulations about security, and they just come in, and what is now if we follow that and have always such a security view? That means we observe, we think of something what could happen, and suddenly we are not so much in the situation, in the group, or in the moment of education. We are a little bit more observer in that insurance thinking. That's a special way of thinking. And what also changes very much, one wonderful example I just heard from Li Chang from China. She spoke here 2-3 days ago for the annual meeting here in the hall and spoke about China, that's frankly free. And she just said, in the moment the state just gives pressure and a lot of controlling to us. Kindergartens, schools, what do you do in the morning? Do you do a prayer in the morning? And so you feel, yes, what happens now if a community of parents, educators, gets that pressure? And she said, now we start to work, to cooperate more, to work more together than we did before. So meeting the outside regulations and pressure could also mean for the social, we combine stronger with each other. We cooperate stronger. We combine our strength. That was what she told now, just from China. But I know other countries know this also. And one last little point, looking back, that is, we had a child study round in Vienna last year. It was not only for teachers of schools, but it was also for the kindergarten teachers, one afternoon round, some rounds. And it was quite clear that it was expressed. There's more individual challenge by the children today. They have wakened up early, some of them, and then not all of them find their way to their body or to feel well at once, so in the beginning of life. And so some children come and bring more individual challenges. It's not a challenge like everyone else has, it's some really individual questions. For example, so honest and full of courage, one of the kindergarten teachers said, yeah, there came a new boy into my group, and he was so restless, and he was so under tension that after some days, I had to learn. So the rule, we learn as much as the children learn, always as educators, that became really true. She had to learn by that boy, and after some days, she started to learn to feel in the morning how high is that tension. Is that middle or is that very high? If it was very high, she was not allowed to go too straight to him or speak too straight or strong with him. Then he started to cry in his tension. So she had to learn by him how to build up our theme, a relation, day by day, week by week. And in the end, she said, it was not only relation now carrying the day by him and me, it was also then to my colleague, she knew all that, my colleague as a kindergarten teacher, and to the mother. So if one relation grows, other relations can combine with that. And after a longer while, some months, slowly she learned how to relate to this individual young person. Maybe so far some points of looking back?
Thank you so much. So we'd certainly agree together, and I hope you too, that children are not born grown up. And they need a kind of protection. And we see now the world is somehow trying to disturb this cared for place for the children. We know that the age of the children who go out of home is going down and down and down. And I'm so thankful that there's here so many people also already very much developing a way to work with a very small children, because here we have still a huge mountain of work to do, how to work with a very small children, and then also the co-working with the parents is there so essential. On the other hand, the age of the children going to school is going down also. One wants to take the children earlier into school, and also the schooling gesture is getting very much inside the kindergarten. So how shall we create a protection for the children, for their free development, and for their play? Which qualities can build such a protection? Well, Rudolf Steiner is always surprising with his sayings. I relate to him because he said in a parents' evening, he said, well, we have to have around the school, we have to have walls of a fortress. We have to build walls of a fortress.
I didn't know what a fortress is, so I asked, tell me, Stephanie, what is a fortress?
Well, the walls of a fortress are built of stone. But that was not the idea of Rudolf Steiner. Not stone walls, not concrete, not fences. But what is a wall? The understanding of the parents, a mutual understanding between parents and educators. This builds a wall, the protecting wall, for this space in which the children can, in free play and free developing, to go towards the future. Mutual understanding, mutual acceptance, mutual trust, for going back to this word. This is building the protection walls for our educational centers. We are going to the future. And I think it was Dr. Matthias Kirke who said, if somebody has no life perspective, then his life will be shortened. So this life perspective is very important for us, for all of us. What is our life perspective? Where would we like to go? I think this is one of the questions we should really ask ourselves. Where should we develop to? And because this is a difficult question, I gave it further on to Klaus Peter, and I will ask him, could he find some road signs for this way into the future? So thank you.
And Klaus Peter then looked in Steiner's anthroposophy to find maybe a picture which may be now really maybe a picture of development also in this conference. Where is the art of social, the ability to become in a new way social, where is that in relation to the human development? And so I try to build up that picture, and of course I ask afterwards if Stephanie then can bring it down to daily kindergarten life, but we try. So in a wonderful book, Art and Knowledge of Art, it's interesting that Rudolf Steiner, everywhere where he speaks about arts, artistic work, he mentions Waldorf pedagogy often. And one thing is this, that he says, there are steps. The arts started in humanity, and that's not only in some region, I think it's all over the world. Somehow it is starting with architecture. If we just look at some buildings, there are special buildings in Egypt, not far from the Nile, and that's a strong expression of that art of architecture. And of course now we ask in each of those steps, how is that related to the social? Here it's quite clear. A clear hierarchic dynasty in Egypt, and the buildings were a mirror of that. And many, many people worked it out, but there was not the freedom we have today, the individual freedom. And for a moment we can ask ourselves, how does a child coming to a special place, or we as adults, get the impression of architecture in your kindergartens, in a special place in town or village? So we see there's human being, there's architecture, and there's a highly observing attitude towards architecture. It's also here in this room, of course. So that's a strong influence for a child. How did human being change the world and build things? First step. Second step, quite different. Not just looking at it, or just, let me find the right color here. Not just only looking at it, but now going into the movement and the life of something in the art of sculpture. Let's think of Greece. Let's think of children in our sand pits in the kindergarten, how they love to sculpture, go into things, making forms, changing forms. Or if you are lucky to be a moment in class 12, 18 years old, Waldorf school, and they are in that big, room where they make the sculptures of the heads. And if you witness that, it's a strong impression. Now it's not only looking at something, it's going into and bringing out this forehead and making a real individual sculpture. That's always surprising. So the sculpturing is now another art where human being goes stronger into, and of course at once has another social relation. You cannot just by hierarchy make people sculpture. It comes from inside. Sculpturing. The next art you can now also experience in these days very strongly. That's now the art of painting, to deal with lines and colors. And if you go to the first floor here up in the house, and if the room is opened, the room with the original paintings of Rudolf Steiner, then you really can make steps. How he just went over here to the Friedwald School in 1921, for example, and then just helped in the midday time, taking the brush, taking the color, and at once working with the young pupils here. Here the school was not allowed to start with class 1. They had to follow the Swiss law, and so they started here with 14 years after having state time, having had that. So he went there and made original sketches in his way, and he wanted something. He drew, and then he asked them something. So, for example, it was clear that it was a sun, but he said, can you see now, is it a rising sun or is it a setting sun? And if you go up, please look at those pictures, and then those boys and girls, some said rising, some said setting, so he often himself was not satisfied and made a next step. So he took another picture beside that, and then everybody saw, was it rising or setting? And the special moment about that, paint please not outer things, that's too simple, that's just copy, but please try to make real in painting or drawing the inner atmosphere, the quality of things. That was his aim, and you can observe that in the exhibition of Waldorf 100 here. So that's the painting, dealing now even stronger with human being, just out of the individual picture we develop. That's what we paint. And the children in kindergarten or in school, you can see that painting has often an individual imprint, an individual character. Next art is the art of music. So, what a wonderful music. We just had it here in the hall. Just listening to a flute, and then flute and drum, and so on. And there's an atmosphere of 1,000 human beings listening and concentrating their awareness in that moment of music. And tomorrow morning, singing, we will join each other, and it is as if music is able, the art of music, to tune us in the moment, bringing us together. If we want, it's clearly a free step. You cannot just tune by outer music. Some military parades in some countries still try to tune people by military music, but that's not freedom. That's just following or making pressure. But out of oneself, like tomorrow morning, then you have a free step and a social step. That is what music can do, a wonderful ability. We will observe that tomorrow morning. So we see in this line now the first part, and the riddle comes. The first part is a part of incarnation, more and more to a social, incarnating from architecture, sculpture, drawing, painting by my will, by my inner picture, and now being with the others in music. And I think every kindergarten can find those steps, that incarnation line, but it goes further on. And now we come to the future. That's another line. First, language, speech. How is it that a child learns slowly, bit by bit, to express an inner by language that mother or teacher can understand? What wonderful thing do we have with speech, poetry, lyric, to express inner things to another human being listening. and we listen then, and then back. So that's a real conversation. It's even more than gold, Goethe says. A real conversation, changing the relation by a talk to each other. So that's one thing. And in that lecture of art and knowledge of art, then Rudolf Steiner goes one step more, just some points he hits, and then he leaves the last steps as a riddle. So now, if we have a little kindergarten play, Christmas play, summer play, whatever, now, or we go with the children to a kindergarten eurythmy, now we even can bring the whole body into movement. In the circle in the morning, in the eurythmy. And now it's not inner only, now it's the whole human being in relation to an inner quality. So tonight we will have eurythmy here, and we can observe that now the whole human being down to the body becomes an instrument and doing eurythmy. We try to observe movement. And now the riddle. What is now a real future art? Some Waldorf friends had strong discussions about that. One said, I don't name them now, one said last century, no, it's not there now. There has to come a new art in future. I think it's not there now, the next future way of art. Another Waldorf teacher said, no, it's beginning, but it's very young. And that's the art of the social, where beside all outer things, we recognize in a moment how the other feels, and we react, not just look, we react. The social just of the moment, of the situation in the group, of the situation in the morning circle, that wonderful moment which is just present. There begins something what is in future as a question, social art. And now I ask you, we see little connections, like the pictures here are brought outward to a picture, but in language we have pictures. We see that movement is brought here into the earthly stuff or clay, but here we have movement of ourself. And then that wonderful bridge, architecture, meaningful architecture, and now what is social architecture in future time? Does it mean that we get that confidence which Stephanie asked for, that we get that confidence not by outer things anymore, but in future we get it by relation, by social. There we get the confidence, by social art. So one thought was, these windows also have only in short, have a clear way from past there, and then going to the future. We are in the mid of the hall nowadays, and for the future, Rudolf Steiner said to that rose window here, he said, behold the building, also this building, behold the building, and then he says, and gives that name to that window, the building will become human. That's what he says. So in future, maybe as a question, we start to build also this week something like social architecture. Could you try, sorry, I spoke long now, and excuse me.
It was very inspiring, thank you.
Could you try to have some thoughts connected to your daily work in the kindergarten?
Well, in fact, if you look at all these arts, I would say the art of education should include all of them. It's in it. It's a whole. It's a whole circle. But on the other hand, if I think now about the Waldorf movement, or I don't speak about you, but I speak about all kind of situations in Waldorf kindergartens. In these 100 years, we made a lot of steps here. We built really beautiful kindergartens. And also all the things in the kindergartens are so beautiful, are so well done. The outer look of Waldorf education is very developed. Now, this is a turning round. Here you work with matter. You're forming matter. But now here it is a change. It goes more inward. If you go inward to the tones, to the sounds of speech, to the movement that comes from inside, to the social, it's not so visible. You can feel it. You can, it's more something, an inner art than an outer art. And I feel that we did here a lot of, we achieved a lot. But if you go now up here, one can really feel there is still much to learn also in our beautiful Waldorf moment. And when I relate now all these arts to the target that there we strive for, this I understood from you, that in fact this future light, this future target is to develop much more understanding of each other, much more working together, much more solidarity, much more feeling the other. So the architecture is helping us to find a place for doing that. But it's not a target in itself. This sculpturing, in order that we feel our body much better, yes? All this is helping us to incarnate, yes, to be here. But in order to reach this future target, music also as a tool for connecting. My tone, your tone, what is in between, the movement in between, how we sound together. It's the same with a speech. Not only what I'm intelligently saying, but what is the other saying, this listening quality which comes in from here. And then movement as a development of my musical faculties, moving musical. This could be also quite an exercising a field for all of us. In order that we will be much more flexible in feeling the other, in going into the situation of the other. This is quite a way, because then suddenly parents are no more just parents, the parents. And the educators are not just educators, the teachers, also upper school teachers, kindergarten teachers, and then the ladies who are with those small babies. And no, we can jump into with our ability of movement, say how the world looks like from the point of view of the father, or how the world looks like from the point of view of the association, head of association. Or we could look at, we could use our movement for that, to feel into what it is like to be in this position of the other one and how it feels like. And surely even more. And I hear it many times. Many times parents are somehow hurt by the fact that the kindergarten teacher is, or the educator is meeting them as the parent of this. You, the parent of. And they would like sometimes to feel that they are just a human. Well, I'm not interested in you, just besides that you are the father of this child. So to bring this into a movement, and then these frontiers and these barriers, and they will a bit be dissolved. I think we have here a wonderful exercising way, because we all have to exercise. Arts are to be exercised. So we can exercise the listening. How does it feel for the others that I speak in a certain way? How it is when I go with a certain movement to him. And you know, when this movement, when we learn in the training course about movement, yes, well, the sense of movement and the body movement, we learn about that, yes? And the tool of the movement is our whole muscle system, yes? And we learn also that if you do a little movement with some part of your body, then the whole muscle system is also involved in it. Think about this picture, that a little movement has an effect on the whole organism, and it has its echo also inwardly in the soul. So if we will do little movements even, not so big movements, but exercising small movements towards the other. And Rudolf Steiner speaks sometimes about the meaningful gestures. If we exercise these meaningful gestures, and they can be also gestures who are somehow getting near to the others, or I work something for the other, these doing gestures, they can have a lot of impact. And we can somehow trust that if we do in our kindergarten or in our educational places, if we do just little small social movement progress, it will have an echo in a much bigger scale. Then we can also go further on. If something is changing somewhere, since we are connected to the whole world organism, so it must have an influence. We should have the confidence that if we are able to change, even in a little scale, but it will have an effect on the whole organism. And the organism is not only the kindergartens, it's the whole humanity. And we can include the animals, the plants. We are connected, we are whole. So we will speak a lot about social, so I don't go into it. And all kind of possibilities how to do better, but it will have a lot of influence. We have to be sure about that we do something not only for ourselves and for our kindergarten, we do something because it's important for the whole organism. This I wanted to say, and I also wanted to say that I heard a beautiful word some days ago, that in fact our way today is from the aesthetic, where we are very good in it, very aesthetic, from the aesthetic to the ethic. So in fact, this way from forming the outside should now be intensified in beautifying our human relationships. Is it good to say it like this? Okay. I would like to ask you to say something about what can we do now and here.
One last surprise of Rudolf Steiner about the now and here. We looked back, we looked forward, open questions for the next days, future social art, and now they're here, just here. And then again in such a lecture about arts, Steiner describes that moment of here and says, sorry, dear educators, that real moment of just being here is a little bit an illusion, he says. It's a bit of a shock, maybe. But what he means is that now and here, the situation now has two different roots. One is what the child brings towards us from the past, coming. That's the root of the here and now. So I painted in blue the child coming, wanting something, having the wish to grow, and he describes that force of the child wanting to incarnate. He says that is a sculptural force. And we can describe that or observe that in the moment a child is born. That head, formed head, is so strong, sculptured already, much more than the fingers or limbs. That's future. But here, the child brings that sculptural forces of the head with it and brings it down into life and wants to grow, wants to meet us, has expectations. So here comes the child, and that's one side of the here and now. In the moment also, in kindergarten, in school. And the other side of the here and now is now the teacher meeting this expectation, this power of past growing, wanting to grow. And this takes the teacher, we take that from the future. And he even says, you meet that child in that moment with the highest you can develop as a teacher in this moment, in the situation. And in my school, often in the many years of school, I had situations, also in kindergarten, if I were allowed to be there, I saw that maybe there's a colleague having a hard time by illness or something, and then that word, put your coat of daily things, put them at the hook before you enter the class or the kindergarten room, and then be with the children in an own sphere somehow, be future with the children. And you can later, if you go home, you can take your coat again and go home with your coat. So what is that? That in the moment, meeting the children, something can live up, which is now really there, and we bring in something, and there he says, you bring musical force from the future towards the child with its sculptural force. So I draw it now in red as music force. Here, coming from this side, as from educators meeting now the child. And in that moment, there are little sparks or lightnings in between, because now future out of us meets past stream of the child, and that is the here and now. You wanted the here and now, didn't you?
Thank you.
Yes. So, can you try?
You passed the test.
What is, Stephanie, what is that musical future in our attitude as an educator?
Well, if we think what is imitation, children never imitate the perfect kindergarten teacher. They can only imitate the striving educator. They imitate the movement. They can enter into the movement, in the development movement of the educator. There they can enter, not into finished forms. This is very important, and so we have, as educators, we are so grown up, yes, we have to show that we are really different. We are not so fixed formed persons, but we are still in a movement, we are still becoming. There the children can join us. And we can ask ourselves about these art, which you call them more going towards the future. We can ask ourselves, how artistic is my day? Especially, how musical is my day? If you ask this question in this way, so we already look a bit different on our shortcomings and on our successes. Was it musical? One thing is that you all are following the rhythm. How important is rhythm? But did you change already sometimes the rhythm of the day according to the children? We have to learn really to listen what is now needed as a rhythm. That does not mean to change every day the rhythm, but to be in this listening gesture, and not just to follow a daily order. No, to go into this musical element, and then also we start to speak a little bit different, I guess, if we think that it should be musical. And the movement. What kind of movements we do? Outside and inside. Are they musical movements? So I think we have here quite a task to fulfill. Because the children, they are in fact very wonderful here in the movement field. They have it. They are also rhythmical, they are harmonious in their outcome, but they do it unconsciously. They have these faculties unconsciously, and we have now to consciously to work on our musicality, on the composition of our kindergarten day or educational day in any age group. Are we musical? And there are days, I'm sure you have them many times, that in the end of the day you say, wow, such a short day. How did it pass so quickly? then you can see you have been in this musicality. And musicality and musical movement means that we are connected to the life forces, to the building up forces who strengthen us. And we are not so tired in the end of the day. And we have other days that we are very tired. But then we can ask ourselves, how could we make progress in our musicality? So I think there are a lot of recipes for working with these arts. And if we think that they all also go to the social future, so we will really make a lot of thinking, what are the meaningful gestures? They are social gestures. Meaningful gestures. There the children are able to join us in their movement. And then we won't say anymore, oh, my children don't imitate anymore. They have so weak imitation forces and so few will forces. But now I have to ask myself, am I really in movement? Or do I think out of habits, old life habits? I'm in movement. How is my movement inside? I'm in a developing movement. Well, I think these questions you can arise out of that. Rudolf Steiner said also once, one should bring the real life into the kindergarten. But what is the real life in the kindergarten? So this is also a question today, because the real life outside our kindergarten is full of computers and so on. Is this a real life? Or should we now here to develop in our educational sphere a new movement culture, which is not connected to this automatization, and it will nevertheless be real. This, we have to think about it. That people don't say, you make old things from the Middle Ages, you're making basketry, and we can buy these things. Why do you do it in the kindergarten? But if you think about handwork as a music, and we experience it as a musical task, so we could see handwork really bring into the kindergarten in order that the children feel the rhythm of your doing, connected also to the etheric forces you encourage to grow and to strengthen. And you do it for a certain purpose. See it as a musical deed, your handiwork, not just for the project you do. No, the movement in itself, this is the music, a live music. Yes? Stitching, basketry, weaving, and then working with the wood, everything has a certain musical quality. So this could be also a question for you, how to bring this life, musical life, into the real musical life into the kindergarten, which is also, like the children, working with matter. Could this be an idea for your practical here and now? Also, okay.
Following your picture of just going into situations with the musical awareness of this, going into the situation and suddenly maybe the child, meeting the child, and in doing, weaving, working, suddenly things come up where you for a moment see something of the child which you didn't see before. That could be. So there are little sparks here possible by doing, by working. What suddenly is to be seen can also be some future things of that children. A little example from a kindergarten teacher in London. A lot of parents wanted to bring their child there, children there, but there was no space filled up the kindergarten. And then suddenly 2 free spaces, and the 2 boys, the new, were allowed to come at the same day. And in the moment they came in the morning, they at once, by a riddle, found each other, those boys who never met before, no chance, living somewhere else. And then they just were together the first day and even the second day, and the kindergarten teachers openly, honestly said, I was so happy that at once they somehow found each other. Where did they bring that from? But third day, she was busy working, life in kindergarten. She was busy, and suddenly she saw in the corner of the kindergarten 2 bags, these 2 boys. Nothing happened, and she thought, oh no, now third day and they had a fight or doing nothing anymore. Sorry, she thought. But she wanted to go and ask. So she came closer to the 2 bags. Can we do that? Yeah? And she came closer and saw that they make movements. And she said, everything all right? And then Ben said, shh, we are fishing, he said. So like 2 fishermen knowing each other for a life, not speaking anymore, and now they sit at the third day. What is that? So things come up in that musical awareness which we maybe didn't see before. And now we want to round up.
Yeah, I will go back to my first sentence. Do you remember it? We only move forward when we think in a circle. I hope you won't forget it till next Friday. But in fact, when I listened to Klaus Peter, I thought this movement he made here, that this is his incarnating into this bodily existence, and then all these inner faculties for getting free inside, freeing ourselves inside, free movement in ourselves, free feeling, free thinking, in order that I can think about the others. We could also then close the circle and go back. From this social point of view, how now to create architecture. Architecture which is helping us to meet, like here, helping us to be in a good relationship. Think about architecture nowadays. I don't know, maybe in your country it's not like in ours. These blocks and, yeah, you know. We could then just connect all these arts together and to feel like this. We could, as humankind, really make a progress. All the arts together for feeling human. And I would like also again, remember we could take as an exercise no more to speak about the parents, the fathers, these kindergarten teachers, and these Waldorf schools. No, not generalization. Let's exercise to speak to the individual being. Nevertheless, even if he's an inspector, even if he is the president of the association, and whatever. And here we have this circle, yes, thinking in a circle, which I spoke about already, and we can, as a demonstration, we could dance it before you. Changing positions, please. Oh, the world is looking differently from here. Yes, from the position of the association, or we could look from here, or here. To change your position, be flexible and sink into the position of the other, the world view of the other place. This could be one of the explanations of this sentence, but you will find out much more about it. We only move forward if we go towards this social. We work together, nevertheless, even that you are not a kindergarten teacher, we could work together.
And to grasp reality of social in that sense you described would mean then that we don't come with a 12 points program and know what the social of the future is. Steiner clearly says that's rubbish, that has nothing to do with reality, it's your thinking. But how to think in a way that our thinking, it wants to be there, it's conscious, we want it and need it. But how to go to and through to different positions in our thinking that it becomes more real to find then social forms. So to meet this reality, we would like to end now with that 2 sentences. And one is about the circle, will be about the circle, and the other sentence is about
the dancing.
Grasping reality by dancing. Steiner loves dance. Grasping reality by dancing to and through in thinking. Reality, my mind, reality, my mind. And there I think we will discover a lot in this week, and so we end with these 2 sentences.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
No. It will come. We want to say, please, that 2 sentences.
We only move forward if we think in a circle.
To grasp reality in the social, we should dance to and through in our thinking.
We wish you a very good conference. Thank you for listening.
Very good conference.
Thank you.